Bulls Nation worldwide. What's going on, y'all? Thanks for joining us. Peace and love to you all. This is the CHGO Bulls Podcast, part of the ALLCITY Network. Thank y'all for being here. I am Big Dave. That is my main man, Will the Go Gottlieb. You can follow him at Will_Gottlieb. And today we have a very special guest. Yes, I'm putting extras on it because that's what I'm going to do. He is a writer and a host on the DNVR Buffs, covering the football and the basketball. And obviously, he's here to talk basketball, but you're going to also talk some football. I don't think you know that yet, but he's going to talk a little college football.
Let's go.
My guy, Jake Schwanitz, is in the building, sir. How are you, sir?
I'm great, man. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I'm pumped about this, bro.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to get you on. When we were discussing these picks coming out and saw that a couple of them, were coming from Colorado, I was like, well, I think we should have somebody on who has some vast knowledge in those players and actually saw those guys do their thing. Come talk to Bulls Nation about them and see if they could be a right fit for the team. But before we get all into that, man, like, how's life in Titletown, USA right now over in Denver? You got your Avs, you got the Nuggets going into Game 7. How's life over there, man?
Can't complain, man. Really can't. It's a lot of fun right now, covering this team, everything that's going on with the Avs and the Nuggets. I know, obviously, last night, not ideal. That sucks pretty bad, if I'm being honest. But
yeah,
look, it's Game 7, man. None of it matters anymore. It's one game for the rest of the year. So let's see what happens on Sunday.
Yeah, maybe not great for you guys, but for us, we're selfish and just want Game 7s over here. So we're excited for it. But what are kind of the vibes over there in the DNVR studios and just Denver as a whole about this Game 7? I mean, I feel like the Nuggets have never been tested like this.
Yeah, this has been a different series than what we've seen from them, really over the last 2 years. They faced some adversity, but this is really they're getting their mental tested here. They're going to have to dig deep on Game 7. With what Jamal's going through in terms of his inconsistencies, that injury that he's dealing with. Jokic, of course, had that, Game 5 where he's just one of the best games he's ever played. So it's a lot of fun right now. It's very, very up and down though, but that's just how these series go sometimes,
Yeah. Is it surprising you with the way a guy is playing? Like, I know for me, like Michael Porter Jr., I expected to contribute a little bit more because when he's having those kind of games, you guys just don't lose, man. Like, who's going to have to be that one to step up? Is it Jamal or is it Michael Porter Jr. in Game 7?
Yeah, I mean, this is the name of the game, right? It's a team game. So, and that's what makes the Nuggets so fun to watch is their brand of basketball is so built around them being a team and playing off of Jokic and everyone playing their role. So, yeah, it's a bummer to see some of these guys going through these cold spells right now. We need more of MPJ. Definitely, we're going to need him on Sunday, of course. KCP's, had his moments too. He stepped up every now and then. Christian Brown's been given some good minutes. So it's just everyone's got to be on the same night. And I don't think we've really had that this series. I mean, even look at Game 5. Jamal didn't even have a great game in Game 5. It was really a lot of yoke. So if this team comes prepared, if they all come ready to play their A game on Sunday, I have no doubt that they're going to come out with the dub.
What's the what's the confidence level in a Game 7 at home with season on the line? Obviously, I mean, it just feels like this is the kind of game that like a championship team is going to have to step up for, and that's exactly what I'm expecting from this Nuggets team.
Yeah, I think we are too. As I said, it's been very up and down this series. Very weird series, right? Lots of blowouts, but I think that it's been awesome. I'm sure you guys are enjoying it maybe even more than us too because of the emotional investment we have. But it's been fun. I'm not gonna lie and say it's always been fun, but it's the playoffs, man. You got to soak it up. Game 7 is what it's all about. Lay it all on the line. So we're pretty excited. All said and done.
Yeah, one more on it, man. Have you ever seen Joker stand for an entire fourth quarter and watch the game?
Man, I think we're going to be in for something special on Sunday because of that. He's ready, man. He's quite a humble guy. He likes to joke and stuff, but you're not going to hear a lot of his true thoughts about especially these tougher kind of moments. He can be real, but a lot of it, his perspective on the game too, and just how he treats game to game and the grind of the playoffs and the season. I think that's something that the team's going to fall back on as well. So got to expect big things out of him on Sunday. We need him. We need the whole team.
Yeah. And that's honestly why I kind of liked what I saw him doing in the fourth quarter. because he's used to people like to call him a robot or like he doesn't really care. He just want to go home and race horses. And him just standing up, just not saying anything, but just that presence felt like, your dad, telling you something without saying anything at all. And it was like, oh man, you got to be ready for Game 7, man.
Yeah, so covering college football, you see it a lot in the NFL too. Like Stephon Diggs did it a few years ago after the Chiefs beat them in the AFC title game. Standing on the field watching the celebration. But a lot of people will be, oh, that's corny. Everyone does it now, blah, blah, blah. But I think there's something to it, man. Anything that you can use, especially as a professional athlete, to motivate you, why not? And to see your leader, your best player doing that, knowing that there's a Game 7, not too far down the line, it's got to fire you up. I'm sure it fired up this fan base quite a bit, and we're just so excited to see what he does on Sunday.
Yeah, now both teams have won on the road. Both teams have won at home. It's like this series has just given us everything we wanted. I cannot wait for Sunday.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
We're rooting for you. We are rooting for you. I must say that. We are rooting for you.
Let's make it happen.
Yes, sir.
Until we open the MINN offices.
Yes, exactly. Then we have issues.
Oh man. Well, let's kind of switch though into the draft a little bit. Before I get into you guys at Colorado, wanted to ask you about this NBA draft. And it's been talked about how it's not really a strong draft. It's called a weak draft. Guys who might go in the late first round might be going early in the first round. Guys who might go early in the first round might go late in the first round. It feels like teams can honestly find a person that kind of fits them, or it's more of like a sink or swim, or just a lot of projects. Like how do you kind of view this year's NBA draft potential?
Yeah, I mean, look, with Cody and everything, it's been up and down, because even coming into this basketball season, this college basketball season, you saw a lot of mock drafts too of Cody going number 1, top 5, easy. Then we'll get into Cody and what happened this season a bit later on. But everything I've heard is just, I was listening to Russillo and Bill Simmons talk the other day, and it's like, this draft is like when you take away the top 10 of previous drafts and you just start there. Your scouting staffs, your front office, they're going to have to do your homework this year, because, and it may be, kind of what you said, you may just be looking for someone who fills a specific need for your team, more so than just getting the best player available. But it's an interesting year because of that. And, there's obviously not as much excitement, but, for especially me and us, as Buffs fans, we're really stoked to see where these guys land, because we think they can make a difference.
Yeah. You guys have 3 prospects that we want to get into here today. Obviously, Cody Williams is probably the main guy on the Bulls' radar at 11, but also Tristan da Silva had a really great season, great career, and KJ Simpson, who was awesome, but then also really showed out at the Combine this week.
Yeah.
But it's funny, we were talking to some of the prospects at the Combine today, a couple of days ago, and Ron Holland was asked that same question of like, what do you think about this draft class being kind of called a weaker class? And he was like, man, it bothers me so much. It burns my blood. Like, that just puts that extra chip on our shoulder. We're going to come out and, maybe we don't have that like unicorn Wembanyama type, but we've got a bunch of guys that are going to be really good players. We'll probably have a couple all-stars. So I think they hear it and they feel it. And I think, it could, like we were talking about with Jokic, just like add to that mentality and to that approach to getting themselves better. But, maybe just like as a whole on the draft, just kind of watching the game through the college lens. Do you feel like there are guys that are going to kind of get to that level and impact the NBA at that point? Or is this a draft where it's, in your opinion, kind of going to be a lot of role players, going to be a lot of like 6th, 7th men and maybe a starter here and there, but not people who are going to be, leading their teams in deep playoff runs down the line, like a Jokic or an Anthony Edwards?
I think it's a mix of both. Starting off with what you just ended off with there, I think it is majority going to be, role players. You hope you hit on a guy and maybe he becomes a superstar. You don't know. You never know with the draft, right? That's part of the beauty of it. So, and I think that's interesting what you said about, the guys at the Combine kind of taking that as motivation too. I mean, like I said, any little thing that you can use, especially when you go through this draft process, you're going to be picked apart, your entire game, your life, your college career, all of that. So anything that you can use for extra motivation. I do think there are some guys just watching the game, this last winter that could pop. Dalton Connect was amazing at Tennessee. Like, I can't help but feel like he's going to be someone that is going to be a factor, somewhere down the line. Even Cody, you saw the potential along this season. It was very inconsistent at times, but the ceiling of his potential is it's tantalizing, man. I don't think he could. I don't know if he's that type of superstar archetype, but he is someone who I think could be a big player on a playoff team down the line. I could say the same thing about KJ too. So, and you never know with the draft. There's guys, Damian Lillard, Jokic, for example, too, who just come up out of nowhere, later picks, and end up being superstars. So it wouldn't surprise me if we get some of those. It happens all the time in the draft.
Just real quick, you just mentioned kind of like best fit versus best player or best talent available. What's your just like general kind of philosophy on that? Because we've kind of talked a lot about it the last few weeks here.
Yeah, so I see the draft from an NFL perspective. I cover the draft here too at DNVR, so I spend a lot of time. We talk about this stuff, the team building aspect, the weird, nuances of the draft, and for me, I feel like it's best player available. Unless you're, one of those teams, kind of like the Nuggets, a championship contender, where you are looking for one specific thing. I think that you kind of pigeonhole yourself if you feel like you got to get a certain guy, right? Just go get the best players, try and assemble the best team around him, figure it out after, bring in talent. It's a talent acquisition game. That's the name of the draft. So that's kind of where I stand.
Agreed.
I wanted to ask you about the age of these players, because I think more so in this kind of draft, I've seen more guys, more kind of 3-year, 4-year, 5-year players that are entering this year, at the age of 22, 23. You guys got one in Tristan who spent all 4 years at Colorado. What's your kind of feeling on those guys who spend those 4 years? Do you feel like they are ones that can be drafted at the height of draft, or just guys you kind of get who still might have that IQ because they spent those 4 years there?
No, a great question. And I think it's kind of what you said later. I mean, look, these guys, they're staying in college longer. And, a lot of people are wondering, why are you missing out on the payday of the NBA and of the NFL and stuff like that? Again, we're seeing this in the NFL too. It was an older draft this last year. Broncos just drafted Bo Nix. This guy's he's going to be 24 when the season starts, And personally, there's some things about that kind of make me uncomfortable about that pick. And you're going to see it in the NBA this year too. It's a lot of older guys, but look, they've played a lot of basketball, and you have to factor in, the transfer portal and the NIL into this stuff. Because of those things, guys are going to stay later in college, especially if you're someone who's not ready for the NBA, who needs time, to flesh out your game and develop. You can collect a check in college now and still do that and position yourself to be taken higher in the NBA draft when you are ready, as opposed to being based on potential. So yeah, it's an interesting conversation. And I think it's something we're just starting to see the beginning of, as the NIL era and the transfer portal era of college sports continues to advance.
Yeah, as it continues to grow, I think you're right. It's going to get that way. But I do find it interesting that you guys, the Buffs, have 3 players, in the draft, and it's not really looked at as like that powerhouse, that kind of college powerhouse. You guys are good. I think like every year you guys are always competing and always getting into the tournament. But what do you think was the difference? And do you think that some of this might have been, and I'm not talking about Tristan or KJ, but do you think some of this might have been the Deion Sanders effect of guys kind of looking at the school saying, hey, I might want to come there?
Not this year in particular, honestly.
Right.
Cody committed before Coach Prime was hired. He was bought into Tad Boyle and the culture that they were building at Colorado. Tristan and both him and KJ, really. Tad does this, he's a developmental guy. He's going to bring in these pieces, and they're probably not going to play right away as true freshmen. Cody obviously did. And if you do, you're special like Cody. But it's a lot of guys that he's trying to truly coach up and turn into great basketball players. That's what Tristan was. I mean, look at when his career started. Look at KJ when his career started, especially. KJ was a turnover machine when he first started getting on the floor at Colorado. And then he's in the Pac-12 Player of the Year conversation this year. And frankly, should have been the Pac-12 Player of the Year this year. So Tad's a great developmental coach. He's all about the fundamentals. It's all about defense, rebounding at Colorado. So this year, it really was just a perfect storm. You get these a lot, especially in college football, as you wait for like recruiting classes to age. This was one of those years for Colorado basketball where a lot of guys came of age, and then you had this phenom and Cody come in to kind of bolster that. So it was really just a perfect storm this year.
That's awesome, man. All right, we're going to take our first break right here. When we come back, we definitely want to get into the Cody Williams conversation that you kind of touched on. Also going to talk about Tristan. Also definitely going to talk about KJ, who I personally like.
Myself. Me too, brother. Me too.
And a bunch of other things, ladies and gentlemen. But first, I want to talk to you about my man Ray at Ray CDJR, because this May, our number one draft picks for all things Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Rams has got to be Ray CDJR in Fox Lake. And right now, 'tis the season. I don't care if it's, what is it, May? I don't care if it's May. I'm going to say 'tis the season, dang it. It don't have to be the holidays for me to say it. 'Tis the season, which means not only is May the time to find your next vehicle, you can score huge savings as well. For a limited time, lease a new 2024 Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cab for only $419 a month, or shop over 125 vehicles priced under $20,000. That's pretty good. Let the amazing team at Ray CDJR help you land the perfect vehicle at the perfect price. Because with Ray's price promise, the numbers you're hearing now that I'm telling you are the same prices you can expect to shop in store and online. That's because Ray's price promise means that no price changing, no add-ons, and no hidden fees. Joey hates the hidden fees. Shout out to Ray for that. Since they prioritize affordability and for their customers, hurry to Ray CDJR today and shop one of Chicago area's largest inventories. Then drive home with more money in your hip pocket than you expect. So if you're in the market for a new vehicle, then you got to check out our team at Ray Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, because they are the only team that we recommend. Visit them today on Route 12 in Fox Lake. For more information, visit Ray CDJR in Fox Lake or raycdjr.com, serving the community since 1963.
Well, if you're wondering how on earth it is that you're going to finance this new car from Ray Chevy, I've got the answer for you. It's Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in all of North America, and it's the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It is just you against the numbers. So instead of battling thousands of other players like pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll in. They've got it all playoff season long on Prize Picks. It's the most simple way to get into the action. Like I said, just 2 or more players, pick more than or less than on their stats, and you submit your lineup, and it is the most fun you will ever have, winning up to 100 times your money this basketball season. Just looking at the slate for tonight, they've got their Demons and Goblins mode again, so you can pick on some guys to get even higher payouts. I'm liking Jalen Brunson over 45 points, rebounds, assists. That feels pretty good. Halliburton over 20 points maybe, but I'm definitely liking over 8.5 assists for Halliburton because that dude just racks them up. They've got a million more for all the players tonight, obviously in the NBA, but they've also got WNBA. They gave out basically free money the other day with their special for over 0.5 points for Caitlin Clark in her debut. They've got golf, they've got MLB, NHL, every sport, you name it. So check that out at prizepicks.com. Download the app today and use code CHGO for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com using code CHGO, first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
You know what? Since we about to talk about, I got Cody. My eyes are starting to hurt. You know why? Oh, because that future is bright, Jake. That future's bright.
Let's go.
Oh, look at him. Shout out to that man. The future is bright for Cody Williams, brought to you by our people at Shady Rays. You can head over to shadyrays.com and use the code CHGO or at the checkout for 35% off your polarized sunglasses, something which I have definitely used. The package got delivered today. I have not opened it yet, but yes, I use that 35% off. It works like a charm. But Jake, let's talk some Cody Williams, man. A guy like you said, we've seen be really high, and a guy we've kind of seen, a little late in the first round, but a freshman coming out of Colorado. We already obviously know about his brother at OKC, but had a solid year, 6'8", 190, averaged about 12 points. That's what I'm talking about. That's a company man. That's a company man right there. Let's go, Jake. That's a company man right there. I love it, man. Shot about 41% from the three. Not on a lot of attempts, but pretty solid. Pac-12 all freshman team he made. Jake, he is an interesting prospect because he is, as the word people keep using about him, is toolsy. He's a toolsy guy. He kind of can do a little bit of everything really well. What is your opinion on Mr. Cody Williams?
Yeah, I mean, very, very talented. You immediately notice that, very long. And he's obviously a young player. He's still learning the game. So what we saw last year, he comes in, immediately inserted into the starting lineup. And, in that non-conference slate through November, early December, it kind of took Cody a little bit to get going, It really wasn't until really that Colorado State game and after, he starts becoming a force scoring. It's starting to get it going, and he's really looking like a difference maker for this team. Then he runs into, some injuries. I think it was an ankle injury that he was dealing with, and that kind of limited him the rest of the year because you never really saw, he was throwing dunks down, man, early in that non-conference slate. The athleticism was eye-popping. His ability to defend guys, he was relentless. He was growing as a shooter as the season kind of progressed, but when you talk about those tools, that's what you're talking about. You're talking about the athleticism, the length, his effort that he gives defensively. And so he had all that. You saw in spurts at Colorado. It was just, again, those injuries. He got hurt kind of towards the beginning of December. Then we didn't really see him again until the new year. It was like mid-January he comes back. And it was kind of the same thing again. He's got to work his way back into it. It took him a while to get going. And then once they hit that stretch, towards the end of January, kind of going into February, he starts to get it going again. It starts to taper off a bit, but he got hurt again. I think it might have been the same injury. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but he's fighting through that injury. It wasn't as severe as the first time, missed only a few weeks. And then he comes back, for the run that they made towards the end of the regular season where they really saved their tournament hopes, made that Pac-12 tournament run, and then eventually the NCAA tournament. He was the sixth man. He wasn't coming onto the floor right away as a starter. He was coming off the bench. And again, you could still kind of see he's working through it a bit. So the potential and the tools are all very evident. But again, this is still a very green player. This is someone who's still kind of finding his game, I think, and developing into who is going to ultimately be in the NBA.
Yeah, so I guess that's exactly where my question is like, a lot of people have talked about him as, a bit of a project, not in the sense that he can't play, but just, you really have to kind of foster and develop the skills that he has, the tools that he has. And some people are saying, it's going to take a couple of years. I think a lot of Bulls fans are looking for somebody who can come in and contribute right away. I think he has tools to be able to do that, but what do you see as being kind of his timeline and his kind of trajectory as a player when it comes to his ability to impact the game for the team, but also just as an individual? Is he somebody that can maybe come in and be a role player the first couple of years, and then does he have room to develop that game even more? Can you start to see, some offense being run through him? Where do you kind of lean on some of that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely, man. He's going to come in. He's definitely not going to start right away. I don't think he's going to be kind of a role player, whether it's, as a defender or it's someone who comes in. He was bringing the ball up the court at Colorado. He was really kind of running the offense. Him and KJ would take turns, especially in the early part of his season when he was really at his best. So he's someone who's going to grow along. And, I remember I met him around this time last year for the first time and asked him, why'd you come to Colorado? And he mentioned the strength staff there. He really wanted to focus on developing his body. And, let's not forget, this is a 19-year-old kid still at this point. So he's still going to grow into that body. And that's something that is really going to be crucial to his development, especially right away. I don't think you'll see flashes, but he's not going to be anywhere close to the player he will be, 5-10 years down the line, obviously. And a lot of that is going to be because of, developing his body. I do think he's someone that you can run an offense through. As I mentioned, he was bringing the ball up a lot. Him and KJ were kind of take turns every now and then. KJ would come off the floor and, Cody be running the offense. He'd be running point basically. And that's really what he projected, coming out of high school as well, coming into Colorado. So you saw all those flashes. You saw some great flashes, really the ceiling of his potential at Colorado. It was just never really put together on a game-to-game basis. I'd expect that's what you'd see his first few years in the NBA too.
I'm curious about his mental makeup coming in. Obviously, he's 19 and he's still developing. But every guy doesn't need to be a rah-rah guy, going at it hard. like his brother. His brother is a very chill dude, but once you put him on that court, it's time to get busy. So what is your opinion on his mental makeup, just watching him this year at Colorado?
Yeah, man. Watching him, getting to know him, this is a very mature kid. Very, very mature. He learned a lot from when Jalen went through the process. He's very, very close to his brother. And, they would come out, when they come and play Denver. He's always hanging out there, with Chet and all the Thunder guys. So they've got a very tight relationship. I think Jalen's passed a lot of his knowledge on to Cody. And just speaking to the guy, man, Cody is just very mature. He knows what he wants. He knows who he is. He understood the expectations kind of placed upon him at Colorado, but he also understood that, he's still a kid and kind of coming through it too. So he's humble in that regard. He's someone who's not going to get, distracted by the bright lights. I have no worries about his character, moving forward. This is a very mature kid. This is a very smart kid. It showed on the floor too. He had good basketball intelligence. He's going to grow that as well, obviously, as he progresses, but the person, Cody Williams, I'm not concerned about at all. He is as good a kid as you're going to meet at this point.
The Bulls pick right before the Thunder, I believe. The Thunder have the 12th pick. The NBA cannot allow Cody Williams to get drafted by the Oklahoma City Thunder. That would just be not fair to the rest of the league. But the big question I have about him is the jump shot and the ability to space the floor. You talked about him on the ball. I think that's what a lot of the NBA scouts and executives are looking at is like, man, we could, 6'9" player who can run in transition, who can finish, got great touch. Like we can put the ball in his hands and let him create. But what happens when he's not got the ball? Is he going to be able to shoot at the NBA level, 41.5% on threes this year, but only a 21.1 3-point attempt rate? So what's your take on his jump shot right now? Is that something that, you think the percentage is more important than the volume, or do you have questions about that at the next level?
That's a great question. I do think the percentage probably is a better suggestion of who he is. Again, when he was really getting going towards, December before he got hurt, or in December before he got hurt, and then he came back and he had that stretch in January, he was shooting really well. He was shooting behind the arc. He was hitting at a pretty decent rate. And then, you look at the numbers going, back into January, kind of into the tail end of the season, you see the shots start to drop off. A lot of that was because of the injury. A lot of that was because he's coming off the bench. He just wasn't in the same role. So
and the mask,
he was a fluid shooter. What's that?
And the mask too, I think probably had an impact on that, right?
Yeah. So we had a mask issue. We had 3 guys wearing masks at one game at one point last year. But so yeah, he got popped in the face at one point too, had to kind of learn through that. And then he kind of stuck with it, I think, as the season went on, if I remember right. So that I'd imagine that probably played a role. I mean, he just wasn't healthy, man, really towards the end of the season. I don't think he was himself. I think he was gutting out a lot of games, especially towards the tail end of the year in the Pac-12 title game. The end of their Pac-12 regular season stretch. I think he was really gutting it out, just trying to give the team what he could coming off the bench. And it just wasn't a true reflection of who he is as a player.
I wanted to show you a clip, Jake. I wanted to show you a clip. We had our guy, Corey Tulaba, founder of No Ceilings from the No Ceilings podcast. Does incredible draft work every single year. If you all don't know about him, definitely follow him and watch what he's doing over there with him and his crew. Shout out to Max as well. But we had him on the show, and he talked about Cody Williams, and his feelings on him. And I'm just curious as to your opinion on what he said about him. So, Joey, can you drop that, please? Right. Drop that heat.
I like Cody Williams. He's, a 6'8" wing, brother of Jalen Williams. Not really the same player. He's more of like a connective wing. There are times where, he looks like he's coasting because he's got kind of like a monotone. He's not like very boisterous and loud, but he does a lot of things well. He shot it well on low volume, but he's got great touch around the rim, awesome in transition, good passer, really good size. Tailed off at the end of the year because he had injuries, but he's really intriguing as like an upside bet that some people have kind of soured on him a little bit because he dealt with like a facial injury and then a lower body injury, and he didn't really play well. He was fighting through it, and he did come back in the tournament and just play and contribute. He's interesting.
That's pretty spot on, man. Honestly, I think the injuries, man, you can't overstate how that really disrupted his development and what he was able to do last year. Because, like I said, when we saw the best of Cody Williams, it was after he had, 5, even 10 plus games under his belt of consistent just game action and getting into it and getting being able to play with his teammates, build that chemistry, so that's in coming off the bench was something he didn't do earlier in the year, down later in the season. I remember a coach told me, at the Pac-12 tournament when Cody was ready to come back, like, we just don't want to mess up what's going on because we're hot right now. We're on a roll. KJ and Tristan are really feeling it. We got Javon Hadley, all these role players who are feeling it. And they're older. They're kind of built for, this time of the year, whereas Cody's a younger guy, obviously hasn't really been there. So I thought that was a spot on scouting report, really. I mean, he's very athletic. He's going to finish around the rim. He's going to do some things, make you stand up out of your chair with some dunks and stuff. Still developing as a shooter down the line, but the ceiling is pretty tantalizing with him.
Yeah, you mentioned the maturation just in the couple minutes that we had a chance to talk with him at the combine. That really stood out to me too. I mean, he was talking about, the defense is really what I'm worried about. Like, I got to work on the jump shot. Obviously, I got to work on all the X, Y, and Z things, but like defense is going to keep me on the court. He like compared himself to Jaden McDaniels and like that kind of self-awareness of not saying I'm going to be Jalen Williams, I'm going to be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I'm going to be a role player that can come in and defend at a high level and then maybe grow from there. I think that says a lot about, what you're saying of just like who this guy is. Do you have any, just maybe before we switch topics here, any comps for him as far as like players you think he compares to, guys whose game you see in him at the next level?
Yeah, so I actually asked Harrison Wind and Adam Mars about this, so I've got a list for y'all.
Perfect.
This is straight from Adam. He gave me low end, mid end, and high end comps. So low end, he threw in Dallin Terry and Jabari Walker. Mid end, Al Farouk Aminu, Tobias Harris, Mo Harkless. High end, Jaden McDaniels, Jeremy Grant, and Harrison Barnes. So, you could look at that high end. Those were kind of 6-man type of guys, right? Coming off the bench, kind of giving a little spark when they can. I'd like to think that Cody has a slightly higher ceiling just based on what I saw, because he really took over some games when he was really feeling himself and healthy last year. But I do think this is going to be a player, we're talking about in the NBA for a long, long time.
All right, we're going to take another break here. When we come back, we're going to get into KJ Simpson and Tristan da Silva. And Joey has some football questions for you, Jake. He said he's got some stuff for you, man. So we'll get into that too. We'll get into that as well. But Will, while I'm sitting here waiting, about to take off these cool shades, I might be a little bit hungry after this, man. Tell me, what should I do? You're
hungry. I'm hungry. I'm waiting on my delivery from our guys at Salerno's Pizza. Stop by Salerno's on tap, located at 1201 West Grand Avenue in Chicago's Westtown, to enjoy their incredible tavern-style pizza and cold beers. We order it to the studio when we're watching Bulls games. We order it during the draft coverage, the lottery, whatever it is. Like, we're always ordering Salerno's because it is just that good. So whether you're headed to the game or you're going to watch it live from your big screen at home, they've got you covered. Go to salernospizza.com or call 312-666-3444 and mention CHGO, and you'll get half off your pizza. That is an incredible deal for such an incredible pizza. Head to salernospizza.com or call 312-666-3444 for more information. And make sure you mention CHGO, that's us, in case you didn't know, to get half off your pizza next time you order from Salerno's.
Yes. And while you're at it, Will, can you please tell me, what time is it?
Game time, hoot.
Game Time is the authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the tip-off with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices used on your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying those NBA playoff tickets. The last-minute deals are outstanding. You can save up to 60% off of buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, you name it. They got the flash deals where you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. And they got the zone deals where you can save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time go ahead and do that selecting. And of course, they got the seat views, which for big people myself is amazing because I need to know where I'm sitting, where I can stretch my legs out, and of course, where I can get something to eat and how close it is for me. Well, the views on your seat will let you know all of these things. And Game Time has the lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. That is the effort that Will the Go Gottlieb gives every time, 110%. So take the guesswork out of buying those tickets, buying those NBA playoff tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code CHGO, get yourself $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code CHGO, $20 off is what your beautiful self is going to get. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Jake, I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Please, Jake, tell me, what time is it?
Game time.
Yeah, you forgot the hoot. You got to add the hoot at the end. Game time hoot. That's how you got to do.
Game time hoop. All right.
There you go. There you go. We'll take it. What's up, I got Jake Schwanitz, man. DNVR Buffs host and writer extraordinaire, also part of the ALLCITY network. Let's get into KJ Simpson, who is a guy I rather enjoy. 6'2", 190 guard, two-time All Pac-12 team. He was the second team in 2023, first team in 2024. You talked about his growth, and if you look at the numbers, you can definitely see it in anything that you look at. He got better at the things he's supposed to get better at, and the things that he was worse at, he got better at. Like you mentioned, the turnovers, but with the team's leading scorer, shot 47% from the field, about 5 assists, about 2 turnovers a game, which is really solid. But the 43% from the three-point line was what was intriguing to me on 5 attempts when I saw him. But he kind of has that kind of dog in him when I watch him play, man. And I really like watching that. So talk to me about him, Jake. How you feel about KJ?
You nailed it, bro. Dave, you nailed it. He's a dog, bro. This guy is relentless. He plays with an energy. And as you mentioned, all he did was get better in college. And I think he's still got much more room to grow, too. He's my favorite player I've covered from CU basketball. Just talking to him, the guy is just, super cool, super down to earth, very mature, completely understands, what Colorado basketball was about, what his role was on a year-to-year basis. And he accepted that responsibility, of kind of growing into him being the guy for the Buffs, especially this last year, but the last 2 years, really. He's elevated his game tremendously this last year. You mentioned his shooting. He was a flamethrower from 3 this year. Hit some just absolutely massive shots. He really got the team going. He was a fire starter. It'd take one KJ 3 and it'd be a run starting for the Buffs. He'd get them out of tough situations. And he's just a relentless defender, too. I remember talking to him before the season. He said his goal was first team all defense. And he really improved in that regard, too. I mean, this is an all-around player, man. He's very explosive around the rim. He rebounded a lot, for a 6 foot, a 6'2", whatever his height is. He came in at the combine. For a player of that stature, he is attacking the rim on the offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball. He's just absolutely relentless. I love KJ Simpson.
Yeah, he was one of the standouts at the combine for sure. He's going to be 22 years old on draft night. Measured just a tick over 6 feet tall without shoes, but 6'4.5" wingspan and a 40.5-inch vertical. And he just dominated at the combine scrimmage. Like he was just the best player in the games that he was playing. Can you just kind of describe what style of play he is? He's putting up huge numbers, over 24.5 points per 75 possessions, 6 assists, 7.5 rebounds. I mean, this guy just stuffs the stat sheet, but what kind of player do you see him as, just in terms of the way that he scores? Is he more of a facilitator? Is he more of just a microwave kind of 6-man guard? How does he project in your mind when you plug him in at the NBA level?
Man, I think he can kind of do all of that. He really grew as a point guard. When he started his career, as I mentioned, it was a lot of turnovers with KJ, a lot of sloppy play. And, at his worst last year, you kind of saw some of that. In the Pac-12 title game against Oregon, down the stretch, you kind of saw some of that come out. But he's really matured his game as well. He's gotten much better as a shooter. He can create for himself. His quickness, on the drive, and just the way he attacks the hoop. You give this guy a lane, he's going to drive it right down and throw it down in your face. He's got, he really has grown as a shooter. I think that he could get better there too, of course. But he's a clutch player too, man. He was the guy that the Buffs looked to in crunch time. He's really the one that kind of put games away for them. He's the one that brought them back a lot. And, when the Buffs won big, it was because KJ was scoring at a crazy rate. As I mentioned, he really did grow as a point guard. You could see some of that, ability to read the floor and be a facilitator, especially this last year. I'd say that's probably the area where he's got to grow the most at this point, but he's still a really good point guard for where he is right now in his game. He's probably still more of a scorer at this point. And I imagine that's what he's going to be in the NBA too.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth when you talked about him being a clutch player, because that's kind of what I see when I see him. Like, he's not afraid of the moment. Like, he kind of wants that moment, right?
Definitely, man. Even going back to, last year, my first year covering them, 22-23. Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was Texas A&M. They had a few non-conference games that were at like neutral sites. There was a Texas A&M game, and I think the other one might have been Tennessee, if I remember correctly. And a lot of those games, big stage, neutral site, playing in these big arenas, and KJ just always stepped up to the challenge. He's out there, relentless both ends of the floor, playing great defense, and just playing super hard. And as I mentioned, scoring a lot. They won, I think the Texas A&M game, they won by like 25 points or so. A lot of that because KJ was just on fire from three. He just couldn't miss that game. So that's just who he is. He's just a dog, as you said, man.
Yeah. And
so
real quick, Will, I just wanted to ask him real quickly, because we're heaping the praise on him, and rightfully so. And you say he's your favorite player to watch, so you've seen much more of him. But what do you feel are, I don't want to say weaknesses, but for lack of a better word, that's what I'm going to say. What do you feel the weaknesses or the things that he's coming in with that he can kind of work on to grow and get a little bit better in this league?
Yeah, as I mentioned, he can be a little sloppy at times. I think he can get play a little outside of himself. I think KJ just needs to realize who he is, realize what he does well on the floor. And I think he forgets that sometimes. He tries to push too much and try and be the alpha dog too many times, where he can take over games. I think he can push too much sometimes to take over games, especially in tight games. I'll bring up the Pac-12 title game again against Oregon. He's kind of the reason they were in that game. He's kind of the reason they lost that game. He got a little sloppy with the ball towards the end, turned it over a few times, turned it over late, and that's why they ended up losing. But they wouldn't have been positioned to win if it weren't for KJ Simpson.
Yes.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me into my question is like, at the NBA level, he's probably not going to have to do that, right? He's not going to have to overextend himself. I mean, maybe he's leading second units and he can, kind of stretch himself that way. But if he's playing with, a group of starters on a playoff caliber team, he's not going to be forced to take on all this extra burden. I think that will probably benefit him, especially early on in his career. But, he's somebody that, 2 weeks ago, before the combine, before kind of the lottery order was set, he was kind of mocked in the like mid 40s area. A lot of teams are now talking about him, early second, maybe even late first. Do you feel like he could end up being a first round pick when it's all said and done?
Absolutely. Again, I love KJ Simpson, and it only takes one team to fall in love with you in the draft process to make it happen. I think that's something that can happen. Just getting to know KJ. If these teams are able to really learn who he is, learn what his game's about, and why things kind of went the way they did at Colorado in some of those situations, like in the Pac-12 title game, I think he's a guy that a lot of guys or a lot of teams are going to be willing to take a shot on and say, look, we're going to bet on this player. We're going to bet on who he is right now, but also for him to grow, because I do think there's a lot of room for him to grow. I hope he's a first round pick. I think that's where he'll ultimately end up too.
I want to ask you this. Go ahead, Will. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I feel like the Suns at 22 make a lot of sense for him. They need a point guard. They need somebody who's ready to like come in and play and contribute. And I mean, that just makes a lot of sense to me.
That hurt my heart as a Nuggets fan, but I'd love to see
I'm sure it did.
I want to have one more on him. And it's Bulls related, because the Bulls, I mean, he obviously will still be there, but I don't know if he'll be a top 10 pick. But just let's say the Bulls, for the sake of the argument, get back into the draft, get back into the, late first rounder, whatever, early second rounder. And if they're looking at him, the Bulls have a ton of guards. It's kind of what our thing is we have guards. But we have guards, but everybody can't do everything. So it's kind of, jack of all trades, master of none situation for the team. Do you think KJ can be a kind of point guard who runs the team? Or do you think KJ is one who just kind of contributes and can help, kind of like an Alex Caruso or even a Jalen Suggs or someone like that?
It's a great question. And look, I'm a little biased, but I really do think that KJ could be, a starting point guard in the NBA. I think he, as I mentioned, he's got to grow in terms of being a facilitator, being more careful with the ball, especially in some crunch time situations, but also he's going to completely take over in some crunch time situations. I think he's got the mental makeup to be a leader on a team. And he's gonna play with that dog and that energy, that effort that I think a lot of players are going to respect too. So I think he's going to be someone that can be looked upon in the locker room and be seen as that guy. It's always tough with the draft and, players like this, of course, how high is his ceiling actually, right? Is it closer to just what he is now, or in 5 years, are we going to be talking about an all-star? Right. So it's a great question. I'll tell you this though. I will not bet against KJ Simpson. I will not do that.
All right.
Any player comps from our guys Harrison and Adam before we move on to Tristan da Silva?
I asked them, they only gave me a bit. They said, KJ is a little hard to kind of fit because he's an undersized kind of scoring guard. Cole Anthony, I think, was a name that brought up. And then I asked Harrison, just from watching him, at North Carolina and stuff, he kind of reminded me of Kobe White, someone you guys are pretty familiar with too. So, and he said, that's a pretty good one also. So, there you go.
There we go.
So he's a superstar. Got it. So let's get into I got Tristan da Silva. Let's talk about him. The 6'8", 200-pounder, played all 4 years at Colorado, averaged 16 a game, about 5 rebounds, shot a really good 39, we'll just say 40% from the three-point line at a pretty high clip, shot almost five a game. But one thing that's kind of talked about him is the way he finishes and kind of his defensive versatility that he has. But fill us in on Tristan da Silva and your feelings on him, Jake.
Yeah, man. Tristan, very, very talented player. Obviously got the size, the length too. And he's got the skills. I think he's going to be a wing. Obviously he was hit or miss at times with his 3-point shot. There were some games he was on fire, and then some games he just disappeared. That was kind of the story of Tristan's career at Colorado. Was when Tristan's aggressive and he plays up to his ability with that confidence, he can dominate at times, especially at the college level. But there were games, he'd kind of just fade away, just would be a complete non-factor too. He can kind of do it all. He can shoot the three. He's a great guy, on the drive. He can attack the rim too. Pretty good defender as well. It's just the inconsistencies in his game, and I think that's going to be why he might be the third Colorado Buffalo drafted instead of the first or second.
Oh, wow. So you think he could potentially go behind even KJ?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. I mean, look, you look at Tristan da Silva, you look at the shooting, you look at the size, and you can fall in love with that easily. But I think, again, I can't really explain it. He just kind of disappeared at times for some reason. And they needed him at times too, when, KJ just wasn't on it when our Cody was out, whatever was going on. They needed Tristan to step up, and sometimes he just was nowhere to be found. And that's when some of the bad losses came through. You're very tantalized by his 3-point shooting and height. Kyle Kuzma-ish is probably a name I would throw out there when it comes to him. I guess another guy kind of inconsistent too. So that's really why I guess there might be some reservations about Tristan.
Yeah, he's interesting though, because he's very much in that 3-and-D wing mold. I thought he played pretty well defensively, especially in like passing lanes and kind of off-ball scheme coverage. And then the shooting, I mean, the numbers are pretty good, but definitely, as we've seen with even guys like Kobe, you can get hot for an extended period of time, and then you can go cold, and over the course of a season, it might average out somewhere that looks good, but you still feel that consistency. So that's really good to know. But to me, I think his like player type, his archetype of player really fits into what a lot of teams are looking for. So, I think he has a chance to be a good pro as well. And yeah, that whole Colorado crop in this draft is very talented. Yeah.
No, well, I think you're spot on, man. I mean, coming into this season, of course, Cody was a projected lottery pick, right? But we saw Tristan a lot in the back to mid first round before this season started. And I think he kind of lost a lot of momentum just with the way the season worked out. This was a team that was hot and cold at times. They just had these stretches, 3, 4, 5 game stretches. They're just not good, frankly. And that's why they were on the bubble so late in the year. Then they got hot, and part of that was because Tristan got hot too. So I think with him, you look at him, and I think there's some teams who are going to fall in love with him just because of that 3-and-D aspect, like I said. But in terms of true ceiling, again, I don't really know. He could surprise me and, maybe not be a factor. He could also be, one of the better wings, to come out of this class, if not be an impact player in the NBA, for the long time. So he's an interesting case in that regard.
Yeah, I would say, and Will and I both love this, but one thing that's been kind of talked about a lot about him is his IQ. And I've read in a lot of places where they have stressed his basketball IQ. He has said it himself. That's one of his strengths is his basketball IQ. So just watching him on the floor, do you kind of feel that same way? Like that's one of his strengths that could kind of carry him and his transition a little more seamless onto an NBA team?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, he was inconsistent, but it wasn't because he was lost on the court. Sometimes the shots just weren't falling, or guys were locking them down, making him, their like defensive key was to make sure Tristan doesn't beat us that night. I think you saw a lot of that, especially this last year at Colorado. So he's a guy that's, mentally, I think he's got it. Another awesome kid, man. These 3 guys coming out of Colorado are all awesome kids. I have no concerns about them, handling the NBA maturity wise, any of that stuff. I think they're all built for it. And I think that they all have the tools to kind of make it happen. So yeah, it's going to be exciting.
That's awesome, man. So I want to ask this about our team, the Chicago Bulls. So it's a weird situation for the Bulls about what they kind of need. Because 1, they need everything. But 2, when you look at it, if you're just looking at it, they have nobody for rim protection and no kind of size. But also, they, like I said, they have a lot of guards, but no true point guard. They could also use a wing. That would be great too. They need bench help and all of those things. Of the players we just talked about, who do you think could kind of fit in with this Bulls roster? And I know you said you like best player available, but when the hole is that big that the Bulls have at rim protection, is that something you think that they should maybe focus on?
I just don't know how much you're going to get of, some rim protection from these guys. Tristan he can kind of go down there, play the 4, I guess, and be a bigger presence. I just don't know if that's exactly his game. In terms of the Bulls situation, I think Cody should be the guy from these 3. I think the potential, his ability to play defense, and I think he's going to really grow into his body, kind of like Jalen did, and just become much more of a force, much more of an athletic overall force on the floor. So Cody's best basketball is by far ahead of him. I mean, this is a guy who I only expect to get better. Again, if you're expecting a guy to come in and really kind of turn your roster around, flip the momentum, and be an impact player right away, he's just not going to be that, I don't think. You're going to have the flashes. You're going to have some great games every now and then. And he's going to lock down some of the better offensive players in the NBA from time to time. But 5 years from now, I could really see Cody, being a key piece of a team. Maybe it's Chicago. I think he could fit in real nice there.
Yeah, he's like everything that Arturas Karnisovas typically looks for in a draft pick. I mean, you look at Dalen Terry, you look at Io DeSumo, even Julian Phillips and Patrick Williams, like all big wings, athletic tools, but questions about the jump shot, questions about their ability to, do it at a high level consistently. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And just kind of looking at this consensus mock draft board that I put together from my draft database, Cody Williams is average draft position across like the 7 mock drafts that I looked at, 8 mock drafts, is 10.8. So that's just in line with where the Bulls are picking. Tristan da Silva 19, and let me see if I can find KJ Simpson at 40. And these are all from like right after the lottery. So I imagine KJ will have rocketed up boards after his performance at the combine. But I also think this is a draft where like draft picks getting back in the first round, second round, like it's not going to be awfully expensive because nobody's super high on this. So like either of those 2 guys, I like KJ and Tristan, I think could be really good role players if the Bulls could get back into it. So I think you're spot on with Cody kind of being that guy that they maybe look for primarily at the 11 spot. And, I agree with you. He's not necessarily someone who I think is going to like come in and be the next star player, but I'm also not putting it past him. I just don't think that's where he's going to be right away. And it's maybe going to take a little bit of time for him to develop. And I think that's like, Dave, you mentioned like not drafting a guard, drafting for need. Like, I think regardless of who you take right now, it's not going to be a player that can come in and be, Luka Doncic from day one. It's going to take some time. And I think Bulls fans need to kind of prepare themselves for that.
Yeah, it feels that way, man. Jake, before you get out of here, you do cover, like I said, you cover the Buffs, which means you cover the college team out there as well.
Oh, yeah.
I am always fascinated about this Deion Sanders led squad and kind of what they've done to college football. Can you give us a little insight as to what it's like to kind of cover this now after Deion got there and just the explosion of love that has happened since he's been there?
It's incredible, amazing. I don't know any word that you could use to fit that. That's what it is, man. It's a lot of fun what they've created up there, and I'll get this right off rip. They're building something out there. Colorado with Deion Sanders as their head coach is going to be a factor in college football in the future, if not this year, immediately. This is a team that's very talented. They brought in a lot of high-level coaches with NFL experience. I think it's 127 years total of NFL experience they have on this staff. Warren Sapp's a graduate assistant. I mean, it's just crazy. It's amazing, the atmosphere. I mean, being up there, man, I can't help but smile all the time. Everyone's just so tight up there. It's a lot of, us versus the world type mentality. There's a lot of false narratives being reported, written, and said about this team and what's going on up there. So it fires me up that I get to cover this team and kind of tell the truth about it, even though if we're not listened to all the time. But we really know what's going on up there. We know how special it is, and it's just an amazing atmosphere. It's better than anything I could have ever dreamed of covering, honestly.
You mentioned not being maybe crazy about the Bo Nix pick. Do you think this takes Shadur to the Broncos out of the mix next year if they want to go that way?
Yeah, unfortunately, man, that was my dream in April. Was the Broncos?
It just makes so much sense.
I you would think my dream was they draft Brock Bowers, draft a corner or something, and then we'll see if they can make it work with Zach Wilson or whatever, and then hopefully you're in position to draft Shadur. But we'll see what happens with Bo Nix, man. I think Shadur is as advertised. He is going to be, I think, the top quarterback drafted in next year, if not number one overall. The guy just has it, man. He's learned from Tom Brady. He's learned from Peyton Manning. Obviously, his dad, Deion Sanders. Like, he's got the entire mental makeup that you want as a quarterback. He is smart as hell. He always makes the right decision. If you're going to criticize him for holding on the ball too much, he's not throwing picks. He had one of the worst offensive lines in college last year, threw 3 picks. So he's just an amazing quarterback. He's the truth, and I can't wait to see where he goes in the NFL.
I got to jump in here. I got to jump in. Big Texas fan.
Special, man. Oh, this is our producer, young Joey Spathis. Joey, this is Jake.
What's up, Joey?
Huge Longhorn alum. He had something he wanted to get off of his chest.
Well, all just because we're talking about it, you've already shared your thoughts. Shadur Sanders, phenomenal. First of all, congrats on all the recent success with the Buffs. Awesome to see. Shadur Sanders, favorite to go number 1. But what does he have to do to hold off the runaway train that will be Quinn Ewers in year 3 in the Texas offense? I'm serious. It's not a joke, Big Dave. What will a good season for Shadur look like for him to lock it up?
Man, that's a great question, because Texas is coming too, man. I think they're a real national title contender this year, and it's because of Quinn and those receivers that they have on the outside. They're great in the trenches too. What does Shadur have to do to make sure he's staying in front of Quinn? I think he's just got to, his biggest criticism that you could have of his game last year was he holds on to the ball too much, takes too many sacks. He was the most sacked quarterback in college football. A lot of that was because of the bad offensive line, but there were some in there that were just Shador's fault, where he's just holding on too much. I think he's got to build that confidence back up to know when to get rid of the football, to know when a play is dead. And then honestly, just keep doing what he's doing. Shador's got all the receivers to put up the numbers. I fully expect him to be in New York in December for the Heisman ceremony. I just think that he's just got to keep on being the leader and the player that he is, and he's going to be there.
Yeah, maybe he even ends up as the second best quarterback in the NFL one day after Caleb Williams.
One more quick one. One more quick one.
Come on, Will.
Peyton Kirkland transferring from Austin to Colorado. He's starting week 1.
What was the name again?
Peyton Kirkland, left guard.
Oh, Peyton Kirkland, the guard. Yeah. I don't think so. No. He's like a younger transfer. And this is the interesting thing. Man, you're going to get me started here. This is the interesting about this team is they brought in a lot of transfers, right? That's the whole story. But this year it's kind of a different story. They're bringing in guys like Peyton Kirkland, who were at Texas, were highly touted recruits who just weren't on the field last year. So they're bringing in transfers for now and the future. I think Peyton Kirkland is one of those picks for the future. They brought in 2 grad transfers along the guards. Justin Mayers is coming in from UTEP. He was graded out as one of the better guards in the country. He's been inseparable from Shadur really since he's gotten to campus. They're like best friends at this point. So I'd expect him to man down one of the guards. And then Tyler Brown, who's coming in from Jackson State. He was unable to play last year because the NCAA did the heartless decision of saying he was ineligible after transferring. So he had to sit on the sidelines last year. But he's probably been their best offensive lineman. So unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see too much of Peyton Kirkland this year.
No, it's a great answer. Right. Good luck to the Buffs this year. Appreciate it.
No problem, man. Thanks for the questions.
Oh, no doubt. And next time, just tell him Texas sucks, man. He loves that.
Hey, man, we say all the time, we're a horns down podcast. So not trying to offend you, Joey. That's just how it is, brother.
Yes, sir, man. We appreciate you, Jake, coming on. Please tell the people about the podcast and about you and where they can find all your stuff, sir.
Yeah, the DNVR Buffs podcast. Just search Buffs on any podcast platform. Will pop up. Follow me at Jake DNVR Twitter, and then follow the beat at DNVR_Buffs. It's a fun time. It's the off season for us right now, but man, hop on this ride because it's going to be a hell of a ride come September, October, November, man. I cannot wait.
Awesome, man. And good luck to you on Sunday for Game 7. Good luck to you, man, and everybody in Denver, man.
Say what's up to our guys on the Nuggets beat.
Of course, man. Appreciate you guys so much for having me on. This was a ton of fun. Thank you.
Thank you for doing it, man. For I got Jake, for I got Will to go Gottlieb. Follow him at Will__ Gottlieb. I am Big Dave at BAWR Sports. Shout out to our guy Joey Spathis on the 1s and 2s. Shout out to everybody in the chat for all your love and all the things that you always say, and for being here for us, man. We appreciate it. Go enjoy your weekend, man. Have fun. Love somebody. It's all good. We out, y'all. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.